Who wants one? Okay, we're good. Okay, welcome to the Hanson Board of Selectmen's meeting. Tonight is October 1st, and I hope you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have asked Jack Gillette, who is here for an Eagle Scout project, to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jack. Nice job. We've got quite an agenda, and I am committed to moving through this in an expeditious but thorough way. First up, we've got an appointment of interim highway surveyor, Kurt McLean. And Mary, did you want to cue that up?
We want to do the announcements first and say that we're on cable?
Oh, well, we are on cable, and I do, may we wait for the announcements? Okay, great.
Okay, we have an interim highway director or surveyor covering for us until we get a permanent highway surveyor in place, which would be, hopefully, I promised him, by December 31st. Kurt McLean. Kurt McLean comes to us from Hanover. He's from Halifax. Comes to us from Hanover with a wealth of experience in the highway field, and I will let Kurt introduce himself and give us his background.
Kurt McLean. I grew up in Hanover. I've lived in Halifax for the past 35, 36 years. Worked for the town of Hanover. I'm in my 47th year. I started when I was in junior high, graduated, went full-time in '78, and I worked my way through the DPW up to I retired at the position of deputy superintendent, and pretty much ran the snow and ice operation, highway, parks, cemetery, trees. So if you have any questions for me, I'll try and answer anything you've got. But I have had experience with, you know, all the road work and all that. So when I was called, I thought about it and I said, you know what, I enjoy it, so I'd love to do it and help out the town of Hanson.
Well, thank you for abandoning your retirement for
Yeah.
us. We appreciate it.
I didn't abandon, but still enjoy it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Did anybody have any questions? No, thank you for, for not abandoning your retirement, but maybe stepping out slightly from your retirement.
I appreciate the opportunity.
So we'll have him in, we've talked about 25 hours a week. He'll start the day, end the day with the crews, and be there for calls, emergency calls, and get everybody out when they need for overtime and things like that. So it wasn't a 40-hour-a-week commitment or anything like that, but just enough. The guys are pretty self-sufficient. They do their jobs. They know what they need to do, but just somebody there to direct them and keep everyone in line and get us going until we have a full-time highway director.
And so 2 questions, contract and start date.
John Clifford's going to draw up a contract for us, and whenever the contract is ready to go, we can move forward. And John, you can set that up with just me signing without having the board come in.
What was the hourly rate that you?
65.
Do you need us to vote this evening to allow Mary to enter into that agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
We learned about the hourly rate. I think that would be sufficient.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple contract, pretty straightforward.
I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, fabulous. Welcome, we're thrilled.
Look forward to it.
We look forward to it too. Thank you, Kurt. Mr. Bloss, I don't want to be accused of giving short shrift to our announcements. May I impose upon you to go through our announcements?
All right, where did I just put them? Oh, there. Announcements. October special town meeting is Monday, October 7th, 2019, at the Hanson Middle School. Town meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. and a quorum of 100 registered voters is required to conduct the town's business, so please come. Recreation events, cornhole tournament, Saturday, October 26th from 12:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., and the second annual free Halloween extravaganza, Sunday, October 27th from 12 to 4 p.m. For more information, go to www.officialcampkewanee.com. The Whitman Recreation Department will be hosting its second annual Great Pumpkin Classic Car Show from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sunday, October 13th at Whitman Middle School, 100 Corthell Avenue. The rain date will be Saturday, October 19th. Proceeds of the event will benefit Whitman and Hanson Dollars for Scholars and Whitman Recreation Programs. Admission fee is $5 per person or $15 per family for the event, which will include a kids' costume contest, music, raffles, food, and Halloween candy for trick-or-treaters. The entry fee for vehicles in the show is $10 per show car. Dash plaques will be issued for the first 50 cars registered. Show car entry begins at 7:30 a.m. Awards will be given in the following categories: Best in Show, Best in Decade, Best Dragster Funny Car, Best Decorated Car, and Halloween Display. For more information, call 781-618-9758 or email recreation@whitman-ma.gov. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: 200th Anniversary, Board of Health, Capital Improvement, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Economic Development, Finance, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, and Zoning Board Alternate. I feel I read this every week. It's about time someone steps up and helps me shorten this list. Applications for appointment and info on the committee is available on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov. Upcoming meetings: the Selectmen's meeting will be Monday, October 7th at 7 p.m. at the middle school, just before the October special town meeting on Monday, October 7th at 7:30 p.m. at the middle school. There will also be a Selectmen's meeting on October 8th if there is an October special town meeting on the 8th at 7:30 p.m. There will also be Selectmen's meetings Tuesday, October 15th and Tuesday, October 22nd at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Bloss. And with that, we're going to move to new business, and we've got Jack Gillette. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Gillette? Gillette? Gillette, okay. I'm sorry that I slaughtered it several times before that. With that, we'll ask you if you want to present your Eagle Scout project and just give us the high points, and we'd love to hear from you. You can stand up at the podium if you wish, or you can stay where you are. It's really up to you.
Hello. My name is John Gillette. I go by Jack, and I'm a Life Scout with Troop 68 in Hanson. Thank you for letting me come to speak with you this evening. I'd like to thank Miss Marini for letting me introduce myself to her a few weeks back and for putting me on the agenda for tonight. In working towards my Eagle Scout rank, I'm proposing that I build my Eagle project, a 10-foot by 20-foot pavilion on Botiri Field next to the snack building. So far, I've received the sign approval from Parks and Fields. I have met with Hanson's building commissioner, Mr. Karan, who provided me with much appreciated advice, and with the assistance of Miss Buzan, I've completed my online permit request. This evening, I'm here to seek your approval on this proposal and to request that the fee for the permit be waived. The purpose of the pavilion is to provide shelter from the weather for those watching the games or for those who would like a covered spot to eat. Picnic tables have been given to the field earlier this year by another scout that could go underneath. Again, thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Guys, any
Thanks, Jack.
questions?
What size is it again, Jack?
10 feet by 20 feet.
10 feet by 20 feet.
That's a good size.
Yeah. Great.
Much needed. I would have loved that when my son played baseball. But at least somebody will benefit from it. Who is going to oversee the building of the pavilion, and where are you getting the plans from, and how much fundraising do you need to do?
What was the first part
First
again?
question was, who's going to be overseeing the building of it?
My uncle is helping me with it. He had been a contractor.
Okay. And who will be, so will it be the whole troop helping you along with your uncle, but he'll be like overseeing it type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And how much money do you anticipate that you're going to need to raise for it?
Probably around 1,600.
Okay. And if people want to donate to that, how would they go about doing that?
I guess just get it to me at one of my fundraisers.
Okay. And do you have a little Facebook page, or can they connect through the Troop 68 or?
Troop 68.
Okay. All right, great.
What kind of fundraisers you having, Jack?
Bottle and can drives, and perhaps a bowling fundraiser.
And do you have a date for the bottle and can drive?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Okay. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to waive the building permit fee and also to grant permission to Mr. Gillette, I'm sorry. You're always going to be Gillette to me. To be able to build that pavilion on site.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great. Congratulations and thanks for doing that.
Good luck, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Mary, if Jack dropped a note to the selectman's office, could we make the announcement when he has a final date for that
Oh,
can drive?
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
so Jack, just do that.
Yeah,
when
Jack,
you-
send us stuff about your fundraising and then we can announce it when you've got them, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Jack.
thank you. Okay, next up, we've got Amy Broderick, who is being appointed to Historical Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2022, and to the Thomas Mill Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2022. And is Amy here? Oh, hi, Amy, how are you?
Well, and
Thank you
yourself?
for stepping up. We're always thrilled to have candidates sign up for committees.
Well, Mr. Bloss put out such a eloquent cry for help.
There you go.
Well, we're thrilled. Did anybody have any questions for Amy?
No.
Okay.
Welcome aboard, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. All right, we're clipping right along here. We've got the Hanson Holiday Committee request to use Town Hall on Saturday, December 7th, from 5 to 7 p.m. And as you know, it's always a good time. It's had by all. Very well organized. It's, I think, the same usual suspects that are part of your committee every year. You guys do a fantastic job. Did anybody have any questions for them?
Fireworks, correct, Steve?
We've already ordered the fireworks. Jerry was working on that, Chief was working on that today. And I was working on it with him. We've got those all ordered. We had our first meeting the other night. We're also working with the Indian Head School and the PTO there to do the buttons this year. So we're gonna have someone from the Indian Head School do the buttons this year. And hopefully we can sell out of those,
So just to cue that up, you have a little art contest for people to design the button that then you sell, and that helps fund things. So it's going to be with the Indian Head guys.
it'll actually help
Yeah.
fund for next year's
Yeah.
fireworks, so.
Now, Steve, controversial subject. At our 200th anniversary committee the other night, it came up that the 200th anniversary committee may want to sell swag there, but you guys don't allow anything to be sold. Has that been taken into consideration? Because it could sway my vote. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No pressure, though.
I think what we discussed was if you guys had cards there, because we tried to make this a free event for
I know that.
everyone coming
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
But if you have access to, you know, if you want to bring some of your swag out there, have a table and be able to have people go to the website
Okay.
and purchase it.
Yep.
But at least you can display it there. I mean, if someone buys something, that's up to them
Yeah.
if they want to buy it. But we want to try to make it a free event, so, I mean, I have no issues with it.
Okay.
But, you know, again, like I said, we try to make it a free event. So if you do want to have the swag there, I talked to Amanda about that, and she's all okay with that. And
Okay.
having little cards to.
That makes
pass
sense,
out.
and I applaud your efforts to keep it affordable, because so few things are these days, so it's important. You don't want anybody to feel like they're excluded,
Right.
so.
Madam
okay.
Chairman, I actually spoke to Audrey Flanagan earlier this evening, talking about selling, and they're considering opening up the mill and having some
Yes.
items for sale over at the
Yes.
mill as
There may be a
as well.
Santa sighting over there, there's a whole plan underfoot
Okay.
for,
That same night.
yes, that same night. So, with that, I will, entertain a motion,
So moved.
okay?
Second.
All in favor? All right, great, and on behalf of the board, we thank you guys for all your good work, and we look forward to the event again this year. Thank you. All right, we have a request to use Town Hall Green on October 5th from 12 to 1:30 for a candlelight vigil for Lena, on behalf of Lena McMahon, and this is for her mom, who has been missing, as I'm sure you're all aware. Did anybody have any questions?
Actually, my only question is, am I taking this from noon?
Well, because of the EEE,
All right, okay.
sundown to, sun up kind of
All right.
thing. So I think they're just bumping it earlier to accommodate for that. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. Recreation, request to use McQuon School parking lot for Halloween extravaganza on 10/27. So I think we've heard that they're going to have the Halloween extravaganza, and that parking was somewhat problematic, and as you know, it always is, when you've got these types of events down at Camp Kiwanee. And so I think they're going to be busing people from McQuon to Camp Kiwanee. Does anybody have any concerns or questions about that?
I guess the only question I would have for you, Billy, would be, through you, Ms. Chair, would be, how many buses are you going to have this year? Just to, two?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's
It was a little dicey with one, so we're stepping it up. We're gonna have two.
excellent. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Recreation Commission to use Indian Head parking. McQuon Park.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, we have a police department vehicle, 2015 Ford Interceptor. I'm not going to list the VIN. And then a 2014 Ford Interceptor as a surplus for trade-in. Chief, is there much to say, or is that fairly self-explanatory?
They're both at the end of their expected life.
Okay, that pretty much sums it up.
Chief, is it a 13 or a 14?
So it's a 14 and a 15. The 15, it's got some mechanical issues that there's actually a 12 and a 13 that are in better shape that I'm keeping.
Okay.
I don't know, they just didn't last as long, that 15. That 14 was up to be rotated out anyways.
Okay, did anybody have any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, that brings us to town meeting preview. Yeah, okay, I was trying to think if there's anybody else I can try to let go.
So Kate isn't in the room yet.
Very quickly, John, can I cue you up on your discussion? I asked Mr. Clifford to come after I had a conversation with Jamie Kenny. As you guys know, the agreement that we struck with Clifford Kenny when we hired them was a fee for service. Each issue that they handle, we're charged for. And we have had an extraordinary year this year in need for their services, which I'm hoping doesn't get repeated next year. But nevertheless, I thought Jamie did mention to us that she thought perhaps we might benefit from contemplating going to their alternate method of billing, which is a flat fee. So I'm going to just kind of cue it up to you there, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we made the proposal to the board, one of the items in your RFP was to ask if there were any alternate methods of billing. And what we've done with our clients, and most of them have taken advantage of this, for a fee of $525 per month, you can call or email as much as you like. And what we found, most of our clients really like it. I mean, On the litigation side, the key is to avoid litigation. Once you get into litigation, the cost can really spiral pretty quickly. What we want is for all of you members of the board, we want the town administrator, we want your key department managers to pick up the phone and call or shoot us an email when an issue first comes up, when they have a question, so we can come up with a game plan and a strategy before it becomes litigation. In your case, you had a few busy months over the summer. You would have saved a fair amount of money just by not having quarter-hour phone calls, emails. We think it's good for both parties. It stabilizes your bill. And I know this from my time as a town administrator, you hate to look at the bill when it comes in and say, you know, it was quarter hour for this, a quarter hour for that. And also, I'll be honest with you, some attorneys I dealt with were a little bit more loquacious than others, and, you know, they're talking about the Red Sox or whatever while the meter's running, and you're trying to get them off the phone. We would like you to be able to call and not even think about that, you know, and again, the key is to call when an issue first arises. So the fee is $5.25 per month. That's about 2.75 hours. We think it can pay for itself pretty easy. It's a great deal for you when you have one of those really busy months when a lot of things go wrong. But, you know, we think in the long term, almost all of our clients have done it, and I think they think it's a better deal for them as well.
So, I guess, do we know what our run rate has been? I mean, which is the obvious question in trying to
I
make-
didn't run it, but I can get that to you.
Can we get a ballpark, or do you have an idea, John?
Sorry.
Do you know how much you've charged us so far this year?
For the total bills for the year? No, I'm not sure at this point.
It's clearly been more than $525
Oh,
per.
actually,
Yeah, yeah.
For the phone calls and emails, we did go back and do an analysis. For June, for example, it was over $1,200 for phone calls and
Okay.
emails.
Yeah.
And I think last month, August was, the last month we billed was closer to $500, but I think over the course of time, it saves you money.
I agree that it saves you money. My perspective on this is that I think getting in early, I have like a fresh air and sunshine kind of perspective, like get right to you, shine the light on it, let's figure out what the problem is, and because if you wait to solve these problems, they very seldom get any cheaper. That's been my personal experience. So I like the idea. I'm not saying unfettered access to you, because obviously we have to have some protocols in place so that we know who's talking to you, and we can't kind of have the Wild West on that. But I think it definitely bears thinking about. And we don't have to make a decision about this tonight, guys. I just wanted him to come and talk to us about it.
I think that we should look back at the bills and see what, we've got 8 months with them since July
Yep.
1st.
Yep.
And let's look at an average, because he's just talking emails and phone calls. He's not talking appearances or anything else. So I think we have to look at it and see based on an average of his services so
Yeah,
far.
I agree. Mr. Dyer.
One thing that I think we should also consider too is maybe not make a decision tonight, but see who we get as a town administrator. They may be strong in personnel, where we might not have to hopefully rely on labor council as much. So I think maybe waiting a couple more weeks and seeing who we end up with.
That's a fair point. Yeah. I like your optimism of a couple more weeks.
I know, me too.
I think you meant months, man. Laura,
Mr. Heckey.
did we discuss if we did use this method when we were first looking at the whole system, that who would be eligible to call? Because I thought one of the things we talked about was not having everyone in the building
I agree.
be calling John or Jamie.
That's why I said we need to have a protocol. It can't be just everybody doing
Well, we
their
do have a
thing.
protocol in place. Anybody who wants to talk to town council goes through the town administrator's office
Yeah.
and get approval to call. So
Yeah.
people aren't just gonna be calling. But my question is, when you do the flat fee for phone calls and things like that, is it broken down? Do I know? Because right now, when I get your bills, you go through the bills and put them in specific departments or categories, whether it's, clerical union, highway union, and things like that. I didn't break it down by phone call. So had I even pulled this together, I wouldn't be able to tell you how, John obviously did, but tell you how much we spent in phone calls and emails, because it's just by category. So we know what was spent on a particular matter. That's how we're
Yeah, I just
broken it
wanted
down.
us to think about it. Again, as I mentioned when we first started, this has been an extraordinary year in terms of some of the issues that we've dealt with, just a number of different planes. So, you know, you guys know what all those issues are. I don't need to go through them. So I just think it's something we should just kind of keep in the back of our minds. And maybe if you could work with Clifford and Kenny and get a little bit of substance around the numbers, so that we can compare and kind of get an idea on an average, a matter is costing us this much, or, that. And of course, when you look at that data, there may be one or two issues that you'd want to take out of that analysis, since we hope that they'll never happen again and we won't have to go through that. So, so we may want to do that. Okay, well, I appreciate you coming, John, and explaining that. I just kind of wanted the rest of the board to be up to speed on that.
We're not billing for
I will say, somebody to my left asked that question.
Sorry. I did say, let's get John out of here because the clock's running. So we do appreciate that.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
John.
John.
Thanks.
Let us know. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to town meeting preview. And Mary, did you want to cue this up for us?
Okay, the town clerk will be down. Today is the last day for dogs, so she will be joining us after 8 o'clock. But I just have to say, it is great having gray hair. I am very happy. Thank you very much. This has been a much easier process than doing this all by myself. So, as you know, you have your books in front of you. Your articles are, your motions, the ones that you're responsible for, will be on yellow paper. And we'll move through the warrant, move the articles, and if anybody has any questions or if they say any mistakes, let us know and we will fix them. So we can.
Okay, who's moving Article 1?
Okay,
Mr. Bloss?
Mr. Bloss is starting number 1.
Oh, that was perfectly
Kick it
timed.
off then, Mr.
Article 1, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $3,100.27 and transfer $3,737.23 from transfer station retained earnings to pay unpaid bills for fiscal year 2019. Explanation, there are a few unpaid bills from various departments which were received after the end of fiscal year 2019. This requires a 9/10 vote.
Okay. Everybody copacetic with that one? All right. Article 2, I believe, Mr. Hickey, you're moving that one.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $127,902 and transfer $150,000 from free cash to supplement appropriations previously voted at the annual town meeting of May 2019 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 for various town departments as printed in the warrant.
Explanation? You don't have to read the whole explanation. That you can see that the spreadsheet is the next page. And when we do this, when we get to page Article 2, the moderator can say item 1, just like we do in the budget process, and go through those. So the explanations are down the bottom for each one of those particular items. But you know.
Don't read those, okay.
That brings us to Article 3. I'm not sure who's moving for the Recreation Commission. Diane, Billy?
Yes, in her place tonight.
Okay, all right. But is Diane going to be at the meeting to move it?
She will be at the meeting to
Okay.
move it, she just had a conflict this evening.
Okay.
I move that the town will vote to amend Article 6 of the May 2019 annual town meeting, the Recreation Enterprise Fund expense for fiscal year 2020 as follows. Line 1 salaries budgeted $120,759 with an adjustment of $61,000 for a revised fiscal year 2020 budget of $181,759 from retained earnings. And then line 4 indirect costs. Budgeted was $13,000, looking for an adjustment of $12,000 for revised fiscal year 2020 budget of $25,000 from taxation for a total amended budget $73,000. You said you don't need the explanation of that, right?
Right.
No.
Can we go back to Article 2, because the Board of Selectmen has not recommended that? Can we vote to recommend, and we can update the informational warrant?
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of recommending?
Thank you.
And Billy, thank you for your email today, and I'll certainly recognize you to speak out if I ever use the
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Article 4, Ms. Diaz, I believe it's you.
Okay. To see if the town will vote to recommend amend Article 7 of the May 2019 Annual Town Meeting, the transfer station enterprise fund expense for fiscal year 20 as follows. Salaries budgeted was $60,000, the adjustment is $40,000, and $100,000 would be retained earnings and expenses. $193,489 was budgeted. The adjustment would be $15,000 for a total amended of $55,000.
Okay.
Are you moving that early?
Yes.
Article 5, I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $4,535.65 from free cash to reimburse Joseph R. and Cheryl Sargent for taxes paid on property erroneously sold to them by the town. And you need a vote for the selectmen to recommend that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Article 6. Fire chief?
I move the town vote to transfer $60,000 from the ambulance receipt reserve account to purchase, install, and warranty a Stryker patient loading system and power stretcher for our backup 2014 ambulance.
Okay.
You want the explanation or?
We don't need to.
No, we
No. Thank you though, Jerry. And Article 7, who's moving Article 7 for the building department? You are, for the building department?
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the amount of $5,000 to supplement the amounts appropriated in Article 8 of the October 2018 special town meeting to create a zoning map books which will show the correct zoning districts.
Is this really proposed by the building department or the planning?
Well, I'll explain. The money that we're putting, the article we're putting this into was actually proposed by the building department last year.
Okay.
So I talked to Todd today, since it's a little confusing, we could do one or two things. Just create their own article and not place it in with the 2018 article, or just have it proposed by the planning department. So it was easier just to have the proponent be the planning department as opposed to the building department. They're gonna do the same thing.
That's totally fine, but it says proposed by building department. That's why I asked, and then Dawn moved it, so.
Because Bob's not gonna be at town meeting,
Okay.
and he can't move it, and I'd already, honestly, I had already had Don's name on it. So he said he would do it.
Oh, that's fine. I just.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
In the explanation, it's estimated 25,000, but the chart is for 5,000 and his motion was for 5,000. Can I get clarification about the estimated 25,000, or is that, that needed to be updated?
It was a placeholder. Did we redo that?
I have 25,000.
You have 20, you have 20, yeah, yours is to be checked.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fixed.
Originally it was 25.
Originally it was 25, and then after Deb did a due diligence, we've knocked it down to 5,000. So, are you using the most recent warrant that we,
I just got this
It
outside.
does say 25 in the
oh, does it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. But that's the motion.
Okay.
So we need to change the page.
Is that, are you good, Mike?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Article 8, Mr. Ellis, you moving that also? Okay.
And also, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $5,000 to hire an outside firm to recodify the zoning bylaw book.
Okay. Any questions? If not, moving on to Article 9 and common recurring theme, Mr. Ellis.
I move the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $15,000 to hire an outside firm to draft a conceptual plan of the revitalization of Main Street, Hanson.
Okay, great. Article 10, Mary, who's gonna move highway department?
I could do it.
Okay. Well, who's gonna move it at town meeting?
Dave Hanlon. I have Dave Hanlon set up. If not, we will find someone else to move in case he's not gonna be
Okay.
there. I move the town vote to transfer a sum of $20,000 from free cash for the removal of street sweepings.
Okay, fantastic. And you're up next.
I move the town vote to transfer a sum of $12,000 from free cash for testing and removal of catch basin cleanings.
Okay. And we've got Article 12, who's moving for the Board of Library Trustees?
Diana?
Okay.
Diana?
Diana McDevitt. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $10,000 for the purpose of removing and planting trees in front of the library senior center.
Okay, great.
Now, would I then read the explanation?
Yes,
That's on me?
at the actual town meeting,
At the
you'll read the
actual town
explanation, but just for the sake of expediency, we're not.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and who's here for the Board of Water Commissioners? Anybody? I didn't see anybody.
No, Sean, and I don't know who's moving these either, so we won't find out until Monday night. I move the town vote to transfer $8,000 from the amounts appropriated under Article 5, Line 85, expenses of the May 2019 annual town meeting to be added to the amount appropriated under Article 5, Line 84, salaries for the purpose of funding and implementing the cost item of the collective bargaining agreement between the Hanson Water Department, Board of Water Commissioners, and the ASME Local 17 Water Union for a period of beginning July 1st, 2019, ending June 30th, 2020.
Okay, fabulous. And similarly, Article 14.
I move the town vote to transfer from a water surplus $40,000 to purchase an electronic sign and signage for the water building, water department building. And that's it.
And Article 15.
I move the town vote to transfer from water surplus $25,000 for security system to be placed at the town's Crystal Springs well site and at the water department office located at 1073 West Washington Street.
Okay, great. And Mr. Clemens, are you moving for community preservation?
Yes, I will. We're ready for that.
Yep.
Article 16. I move that the town vote to appropriate $98,000 from the Open Space Reserve Fund to be used for the purchase of 0 McQuon Street, which is Assessors Map 60, Lot 2, known as the sleeper property.
Okay, great.
For the explanation is lengthy, I might even abridge it on the floor, town meeting floor, but people can read it, but I...
Yeah, but I'm glad to see you tweaked it for our fantastic news, which we
Well,
haven't
Mary-
really
Mary-
announced yet, but
Mary
yeah.
actually has a document to prove that we could tweak it.
Okay, that was good move, guys. And-
Article 17, it's me.
Yep.
I move the town transfer free cash for the sum of $15,000 to be added to the amounts appropriated in Article 10, Line 1 of the May 2019 town meeting for town-wide fiber improvements.
Okay, fantastic. Article 18, Mary, can you cue that one up?
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer, oh, wait a second, which one is this?
18, tree warden.
It's free cash.
25.
25?
Yep, that's what I have to.
Free cash. Transfer from free cash, how much money are we doing, 15,000?
25.
25,000 to remove dangerous and hazardous trees throughout Camp Kawani property. That's the tree warden.
Now, this was subject to arborist type of
Yes, I'm waiting on that.
situation. I just wanted to clarify because there's no mention of that in the article.
Mhm.
But we definitely voted on that.
Yes.
Okay, so just want to make sure that that
can
is
have that.
somehow reflected.
Okay.
Okay, Article 19.
All right. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $10,000 as the town's 50-50 share of a mass tree grant to replace trees throughout the town.
Okay, fabulous, thank you. Article 20.
I move that the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to be added to the stabilization fund.
Okay, Mr. Heckey.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000 to be added to the regional schools capital stabilization fund as established by the October 2014 special town meeting.
Okay. Article
Okay, at
20.
what point can we stop saying that part?
What?
Or do we just, the October 2014 special town meeting?
Yeah, you don't have to say, you can even skip that now if you want. You can say to be added to the Regional Schools Capitalization Fund, period. Because it's been established, you know? You don't-
Right, and we referred to it now for 5 years, so I think at some point we can stop
Exactly.
saying
Works for
it.
me.
So Jim, we just shortened up that motion for you.
Thank you very much.
Should get that one. Article 22, I move that the town of Hanson rescind its vote on Article 18 of the October 1st, 2018 special town meeting, approving the amended regional agreement with the Whitman-Hanson Regional School. Okay, Article 22. Somebody from the,
I move the town vote to adopt the revised capital improvement program as presented by the capital improvement committee, which, that reminds me, we need to put that in their book, in their
Okay.
things.
so who is that gonna be Mr. Norton?
I have his name on the motion,
Okay.
so, and, if
Alrighty.
not, we will find something to do.
Article 24.
I move that the town vote to change the term of the town moderator from 1 year to 3 years, effective the next annual town election on May 16th, 2020.
How appropriate that you're moving that motion. Yeah. Okay. Article 25.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey a non-exclusive use easement for a 30-foot strip of land running along the property line between 62 Ocean Ave as printed in the warrant.
Okay, fantastic. And Article 26.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey a non-exclusive use easement to Federal National Mortgage Association for a 10-foot strip of land running along the property line between Plot 30 and Plot 32 Woodbine Avenue for the existing home encroaching on Plot 32 as printed in the warrant.
Fabulous. And Mary, did you want to briefly, because we haven't voted to recommend because we
Correct.
didn't have a dollar amount.
All right, so I have spoken to the attorney for the bank and told her what the situation was. The board wants to get this resolved and put an offer of $5,000 out for them to pay, and they are reviewing that offer right now, and I will hopefully be able to let you know in a day or two whether they accept it. I explained this has been ongoing, would like to put it to bed, and I think now they actually called us. So I think they're anxious to get the house sold and back on the market, and they need to have this resolved.
So we'll have to, I guess, do you think you'll have confirmation one way or the other prior to town meeting so that we can actually vote to recommend this or not? Or do you want us to do based on 5,000?
Yeah, based on negotiations or something.
We can, if we don't have a price, before town meeting, we can say contingent upon a price that's acceptable to those selectmen or something like that.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I mean,
So
I'll
should
work
we,
the language.
so we'll wait until just prior to town meeting to take that vote, just in the event that we actually have a hard number?
We can do it in that quick meeting before town
Yeah.
meeting, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
That does make a lot of sense. Okay, great. Good work, Mary. Article 27.
I move the town vote to amend the wage and personal bylaws, Articles 2-12, classification and compensation, Section 1C is printed in the warrant.
Okay, fabulous. I move the town, Article 28, I move that the town amend the wage and personnel bylaws, Article 2-12, classification and compensation by deleting Section 11A in its entirety and inserting the new Sections 11A as printed in the warrant.
Article 29, I move that the town vote to amend wage and personnel bylaws, Article 2-12, classification and compensation by, it says add, but I'm assuming it's adding new section 12DA7 as follows, as printed in the warrant. That should be adding, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Article 30, that was 29, right?
That was 29,
Yep,
correct.
30. I move the town vote to amend the Town of Hanson general bylaws to add a new section 24 marijuana to Article 3, articles relating to the general public, which would prohibit public consumption of marijuana in the Town of Hanson and require the licensure of all marijuana establishments as defined by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 94G, as printed in the warrant. This is not proposed by the Board of Selectmen, though.
This, the petitioner should move.
Yeah, I was just saying, is this
No.
somebody's
This is
idea of
this is
buying?
no, wait. This is ours. This is ours. This is ours.
Because we voted on this.
Sorry.
Wait,
And the other
this
one
is
we
ours
didn't.
because while we have policies and procedures and rules and regulations, by putting this bylaw in place, it gives us a little more teeth.
I misread that.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, Article 30, the petitioner should be moving,
Correct.
right? And do we know who, don't we use the first person on the petition?
I
I think that's how Beth generally does it, is whoever the first person who signs the citizen's petition is the person who is.
Who actually moves it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the person who's there, it's not a legal requirement that you do, that makes it easier for Beth, who she likes.
I have Article 30, that's ours.
Yeah,
That's
Article
not
30
yours.
is yours.
Yeah, that's not the petitioners.
32 and 30.
Yeah, Article 30?
Yeah, that's our article.
33 and
Oh, this is,
34.
yes,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
who's
us.
moving
So
Article 30?
We have 30, you just did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, who's moving Article 31?
Matt.
That's
That's
me.
me, yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
So Article 31,
okay.
I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Hanson general bylaws by adding Article 3-25, waste reduction, as printed in the warrant.
And you and the Board of Health have agreed that it should be you moving this article?
Yep,
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I just,
Yes.
okay,
thank you for asking, because I know would have gotten a phone call on that one.
yes.
Are you moving it early?
No.
It'll be Matt. Okay.
Matt's gonna do 31 and 32.
Okay.
Alright. So Article 32, I move that the town to vote, I move that the town to amend the Town of Hanson general bylaw by adding Article 3-26, polystyrene restrictions, as written in the warrant.
Okay, fantastic. And that brings us to
Will
33.
you be speaking on that, Matt? Or
Um,
is somebody going to be speaking on it? Because,
Yeah.
Does your daughter want to speak on it?
what's that?
Does your daughter want to speak on it?
She might, she's more on the next one, I think.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there'll be
I-
questions on that one.
Yeah.
Somebody should.
yeah,
Matt and I have had many discussions.
Okay, so, and then 33 and 34, petitioners will be moving that.
Yeah, so Sean, you'll just call the two petitioners and see if they move it, and if not, somebody else will move it.
Okay.
And that brings us to the conclusion of our town warrant.
So I hope town meeting goes as smoothly
Just-
as
wow, yeah.
this. Since
Got like
I
15
won't be
minutes.
there. So please read your articles, read your motions. If you have any questions, let me know so we can straighten things out. Greer and I will fix some of the changes that we've just come across. Tighten that up, but if you see anything that's glaring and needs to be fixed, please let us know.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to everybody that was part of that discussion.
Beth's gonna be very disappointed she missed it.
And everybody that, she will be in a state of shock, actually, that she didn't make it. She's gonna be like, really? I'm like 10 minutes late. Mr. Clemens, in the interest of time, I thought I would have you queue up the land grant award before I get into a fireworks discussion.
Okay.
Literally fireworks, not the school assessment.
To sign that this is the.
Yes. Okay, hold that thought. Okay, Mary, so we're gonna take things a bit out of order, and I thought since Mr. Clements is here in the interest of his time, we would queue up the land grant award.
We certainly do. Last Wednesday, I had a trip to Salem, which I found out there are other communities that you can't get to. Because Salem was very difficult to get to. I always felt Hanson was, you can't get there from here, but Salem is the same way. Lovely community, and I attended a grant award ceremony, and Hanson was awarded $203,296 for the land grant, thanks to the hard work of Phil Clemens on behalf of the purchase for the sleeper property. It was,
Thank you, but the first words out of my mouth is it always takes a team to do anything like this. We certainly were happy to receive it. This is probably the largest land conservation grant the town has ever received by a wide margin. But the team that made this happen, certainly the Sleeper family, who've been stewards of it for many generations, they voluntarily brought it to the town as an opportunity because they're very conservation minded. Also, Selectman Laura Fitzgerald-Kemet was instrumental in the early communications and advocacy for that. The Wildlands Trust, namely their Scott McFadden, their Director of Land Protection, he made the whole application work and got it in, personally delivering that to town, to the city of Boston, just in the nick of time. And the Conservation Commission members and our town planner, Deb Petty, because she's working to update the town's open space and recreation plan, which is the document that makes us eligible to even apply for these grants. So we're going to stay in the game for that. But we're still not quite done because the community preservation funds that will provide the balance of this purchase price need to be voted by voters at the town meeting next week. And that's money that's already in hand, will not impact taxes. So we hope people will see the sense of doing this. It will enhance all the conserved property around it and the quality of life all around town. So,
and Mr. Clements, just for those that are not in the know, can you cue up where that piece of property is?
It's something, you can't see it from the street, but it's literally a keystone in the parcels between Hanson and Pembroke. There's 4 or 5 protected parcels that would be almost separated except for this parcel here. It's 13 acres right on the town line. It's east of Camp Kewanee, it abuts the camp. It's north of Smitty's Bog, it abuts that. And it's right along the Pembroke town line where there's about 100 plus acres of town-owned bog and forest in Pembroke. So it will complete the landscape picture. It's the last missing puzzle piece for this large acreage that's, again, Bay Circuit Trail goes right through there. That will be enhanced by this purchase. I think we'll find ways for the town website and others to provide pictures of it. But the best way to enjoy it would be to go and see it ourselves. So thank you all for helping with this. And
thank you.
The town is, we are becoming well known to this granting department within the state. So
one department in the state government we want to be well known.
And the person who called us to tell us from that department, we began, you won't believe it, his name is Nathaniel Thomas.
Wow.
I said, well, we have a mill named after you.
We do now.
So he wants to come see it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, great. So that's good news. And Mr. Clements, on behalf of the board, we thank you for all your hard work. It was quite a fire drill that Scott McFadden from Wildlands Trust and Phil went through towards the end of July, and we appreciate that. So now, as Mr. Clements mentioned, we just have one last piece, and that's hopefully town meeting will vote to award the CPA money. Mary Marini and I had the opportunity, quote unquote, was it last Wednesday?
Yeah, I was there too.
I didn't see you.
Yeah.
And had the opportunity to attend
Tuesday,
yeah, the fireworks presentation in the town of Hanover. So just to level set, the fireworks site is primarily Hanover, but it's also Pembroke, Rockland, and Hanson as well. And sitting in the audience, it seemed to me as though Hanson really hasn't been taken wildly into consideration in this particular factor. So anyway, this particular session, it was the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, the Department of Public Health, and then Tetra Tech, who was the company who has been hired to clean up the site. And I don't know what people know or they don't know about the site, but I did write a few little notes just because they were a little shocking to me. So this particular site has been used by a number of different, they call them potential responsible parties, PRPs. So Department of Defense, Kerr McGee, who went belly up, but before they went belly up and filed for bankruptcy, they set aside some money that's been being used for this first part of the cleanup. MIT, there's a whole list of other, of other companies. And this is important for something I'm going to mention later. So, some there in attendance were there because of the public safety, public health issues. I think everybody's aware there's been a gentleman who's been on social media and he's been in the local media, that he has a rare form of brain cancer, and he is really urging the Department of Public Health to try to connect the dots in ways that they're not already connecting the dots, because of the way that the National Cancer Registry works, where they will only say that you've gotten cancer if you literally stay in the same house for your entire life. It's basically where you are at the time that cancer, that you're diagnosed. So if you move and you're diagnosed, even though you might have lived your entire life someplace, if you move and then a day after you're diagnosed, then the National Cancer Registry will register you as the place you just moved to. So it's kind of like counterintuitive, but those are the rules. And so he was really pleading for them to think about changing. So that was kind of like one, I'd say, theme. And then the other theme was Mass Department of Environmental Protection telling us there's nothing to worry about. And then the third theme was the gentleman from Tetra Tech telling us that there's a public comment period that ends on October 25th. And the public comments they're at a point where they've done some preliminary cleanup, and they've kind of figured out generally where they think most of the problems are. And as you know, and certainly the people in that area know, they've detonated a number of explosives in that area. But just to give you an idea, there were 12.4 tons of munition debris removed, and 13,770 explosive or potentially explosive items have been removed. Okay, and that's just to date. And they just started doing this in 2017, actual cleanup in 2017 of these. So the reason I mention that is one of the things that the gentleman from Tetra Tech was presenting was there were basically two options for cleaning up this property. One of them is called cleaning up to achieve project-specific remedial objectives, and then the other one is clean up to achieve or approach background levels. So to achieve the project-specific remedial objectives, the gentleman from Tetra Tech told us that essentially their objective there would be to restore the area to a point where the wide-mouth bass that would be fished out of that area would have contamination levels that were equal to or lower than the wide-mouth bass throughout Massachusetts. That did not sit well with me. I thought, that's really our benchmark? Like, we want to have wide-mouth bass that's less contaminated or as contaminated as the rest of the state? Then the third, but more expensive option, was the to background level, which is as close to bringing that back to where it would have been had none of this contamination happened. So it means dredging, soil removal. Obviously, it's much more expensive. You're talking about it probably being up to about $200 million for that. My thing is, the guy from Tetra Tech and the Mass DEP made a point of saying that the state isn't going to be paying for this, and the towns aren't paying for this. They are in negotiations. The Mass DEP and the Attorney General's office are currently in negotiations with the potentially responsible parties, MIT, Department of Defense. These kind of seem like deep pockets to me, right? So I'm sitting there thinking, if the state's not paying for it and the town's not paying for it, why would we settle for anything less than bringing this back to background, which is cleaning up as far as you possibly can? If we're not footing the bill and we know these people are still in business and they have money and they've got liability attached to this, why would we settle for anything less? So Fortunately for me, Senator Brady was sitting in front of me at the meeting, and so I told Senator Brady my feelings. He just sort of took it all in, and I said, I'm expecting you, Mike, to go and talk to the Attorney General's office and advocate on behalf of the town of Hanson. And he said, okay. And then I kind of got back and I sent Mary a message, and I said, you know, I'm concerned on a number of different levels. There's like a lot to, as they say, unpack on this. I'm concerned that this has been going on for so long, and I don't really know that anybody has particularly engaged the town of Hanson in these discussions. And I get that the majority of this is happening in Hanover, but we're still impacted, and so is Rockland and so is Pembroke. But I'm not a selectman on those boards. I'm a selectman on the board of Hanson. So I'm concerned that we haven't particularly been taken into consideration, and we haven't really been engaged in any of these conversations. I'm concerned that there are people that live in Hanson that are impacted by this. I mean, we're talking, just so if people don't know visually like where this is, it's right on Factory Pond there. So if you're going over that Hanover to Hanson line, and you know, you might that little bridge, and you know, you'll see like Waterford, and there's like a Tiffany Hill on the right hand side. That whole area right there is part of this. And for the part that's Hanson, they know that this is where things were disposed of, right? So they've broken it down into like things were created in this part of the site, things were detonated in this, and things were disposed of. And so our part is the detonation and the disposal site. So the reason I'm mentioning this and bringing it to the board is because we've got that public comment period that closes on October 25th, and we need to have a voice. We need to have a seat at that table. And in the interest of that, I've asked Mrs. Marini if she would reach out to Mass DEP and ask them to come to Hanson for either, what was it, the 15th or the 22nd? Correct. I think we have 2 meetings just prior to the closing of the public comment period. I've also asked that she coordinate with Representative Cutler and Senator Brady to be here so that they can hear our thoughts on this, and hopefully other people that may come and be concerned as I am, and I know there are people that are concerned. And I would like, as an outcome from this board, to have a letter that is reflective of what our public comments are, which is clean it up all the way back to background and don't settle for less. Like, why are we going to settle for less? Like, negotiation 101, go in all the way. And then, you know, if you tell me you can't afford it or you didn't get that money, but I'm not hearing that. And so I just don't want them to back down on those negotiations, getting the money from these potentially responsible parties, just because it's easier or nobody's, you know, saying, hey, you know, we want that cleaned up. So that's basically my spiel on the fireworks. Did you have anything you wanted to add from your perspective?
You covered it all.
Okay.
Nicely
Mary?
done. Nicely done.
Okay, guys, anything? Okay, it's just an update,
Just
really.
a quick question, how much,
Yeah.
what's the percentage that's in Hanson over there?
That's a dicey question, and I'm really spatially challenged, but I would, if I had to, I'd say 10 to 15% maybe of the whole site might be, you know,
Right.
it's
mostly the
small-
pond
yeah,
section.
it's mostly a pond
Okay.
section, and, you know, and like, a gentleman that was there that lives on Beechwood Street, and his wife came up to me after the meeting, and he said, you know, like, I've got bees, and he said, you know, they're detonating, and my bees are dying off, and I'm trying not to be paranoid that it's got something to do with the detonations and stuff, but he's like, you know, I've noticed that. He said he's noticed, fewer snapping turtles and things like that. So, you know, this stuff might seem like it's not that important, but I mean, this is happening in our backyard. This is like, you know, a site that apparently past boards had looked at whether this should be a Superfund site or not. I don't recall those.
It was several years
Okay,
ago.
I
It
mean,
wasn't
I don't
recently,
recall.
several years ago. When it occurred.
But apparently it was looked at, and none of the towns wanted to make it a Superfund site because that brings in a whole different level of I guess, you really you lose a lot of control when you're turning it over to the federal government, and you can argue either side of it, but now they're all the way in it with the Mass Department of Environmental
I would support a
Protection.
letter of exactly what you just said, absolutely.
Well, I just thought before we write the letter, I'd like to give citizens the opportunity, if we can get these guys here, either the 15th or the 22nd, I'd like people from town to hear what's going on, be aware of what's going on, and I'd like these officials to hear from our citizens as well, as they listen to the folks from Hanover, and that's fantastic, but we're a part of that equation too. So that's pretty much all. Okay, great. Thank you for listening to me. Okay, and old business, we have reinstate upscale auto, 169A Franklin Street. And Mary, if I recall, is this the folks that had some work that they had to do? Mr. Curran had cited a few things,
Yes.
and we had initially given them a
Provisionary.
Right, provisionary, and then it turned out that they did not live up to the provisions, and so then we revoked the license.
Correct.
So I assume, since this is on here, that Mr.
Mr.
Curran
Curran
has
sent
indicated.
us an email saying that he wanted to let us know that he has inspected and they're all set to be reinstated.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion.
Second.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, fabulous. School assessment, and I have discussion, but it's not really a super discussion, it's more of some information. So, I guess I look at things a little bit differently than maybe others do. I think we're at a point, I'm sure you guys have been getting a lot of feedback. I'm trying to look for my little talking points that I wrote out so that I don't go off the rails on this. But,
Even with your fireworks.
they could be with my fireworks, that would be ironic. But let me start off by saying, we've got a little bit of a history, and I don't know who went to the, school committee meeting? I think, Matt, I saw you there.
Wes was there.
And Wes, yeah. So, a few of us went to the school committee meeting. And let me cue it up by saying, there's been a lot of rhetoric that I don't intend to engage in. I don't think it's productive. In fact, I think it's counterproductive. And it makes it very difficult to get together with people and negotiate when you've got people hurling insults and, just, it's ridiculous, it's unprofessional, it's unbecoming, and I could go on and on and on.
Laura, give me a pile, and I will walk through it and see if I find the page for you while you're talking.
Well, if you don't mind giving me a second, can we take a brief recess?
Sure.
Okay, great. And then I'll find my paperwork.
Jim's happy to take one.
Carol.
Thank you, Carol, sorry. Okay.
Is Carol back on?
Yep, I'd like to provide a little historical context regarding this discussion. In 1992, Whitman and Hanson entered into a regional agreement that specified that each town would be assessed based upon their student population. With the current populations, that assessment has landed at approximately 60% Whitman and 40% Hanson. Historically, and without incident, that methodology has been used to assess the towns. Several years ago, both towns agreed to open up the existing regional agreement so that it could be updated to reflect school closings, because we had like Park Avenue and a bunch of other stuff in there, new schools and other non-material changes. Unbeknownst to anyone in Hanson, language was added to the revised regional agreement that changed the assessment method to be a statutory method. Under that assessment methodology, Whitman would pay less than it is currently paying, and Hanson would pay more as a result of the criteria used to measure wealth in each community. Whitman has still not executed this revised agreement, and while Hanson has executed this agreement, it has become clear to this board that because of that material change, it is not to Hanson's advantage. As a result, this board put a warrant article into the upcoming October town meeting to rescind our agreement. Over the past few years, and despite a much larger commercial and residential tax base, Whitman has found itself in dire financial straits. In an effort to support the schools and to work through some of these financial issues, they put together a Whitman Override Committee. This Whitman Override Committee discovered what they thought was an inequity in the way the towns were being assessed, and insisted that the towns are required to use the statutory method of assessment. Under the statutory assessment methodology, over $1 million of the school assessment would be shifted from Whitman onto Hanson. And as you guys will recall, about a month ago, the district superintendent attended a Hanson Board of Selectmen's meeting to put us on notice that based upon his participation in the Whitman Override Committee meetings and his understanding of the 2007 DESI guidance, we were likely going to be assessed under the statutory method. And as a result, he anticipated that Hanson would be paying $1 million more per year to the district. Then on September 16th, at the school committee meeting, the school's attorney repeatedly told those in attendance that until, if ever, a new regional agreement is struck, the per-pupil methodology outlined in the 1992 regional agreement would prevail. At that same meeting, the school committee voted to put together a 24-member committee comprised of elected officials, appointed officials, and citizens at large for the purposes of renegotiating the regional agreement. Last week, the Whitman Board of Selectmen voted to demand that the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee assess each town based upon the statutory method. When we left the meeting on September 16th, we had all agreed to participate in discussions regarding the renegotiation of the regional agreement. While we did not commit to renegotiating the agreement, we agreed to be part of the discussions as a show of good faith. Now we find ourselves in a position where the Whitman Board of Selectmen have effectively let us know they are not interested in opening up a dialogue. Their actions have made it clear that despite what the school's attorneys have said, and despite what our council has said, that they're going to bulldoze through and insist upon the statutory method being used for assessments. Well, here in Hanson, we make decisions based on facts, on data, and on the law. We are currently in the process of gathering all of the data we need to get a clear picture of the revenue and the expenses of each town relative to the district. Once we have collected that information, we will gather our Hanson team and we will weigh our options. And those options will include deregionalization of K through 8, renegotiating the regional agreement, litigating, etc. Although we do not have all of the data and the facts necessary to complete this analysis, we do have some information. We know that enrollment in Hanson is declining, and declining rapidly. We know that we have 2 schools in Hanson, and Whitman has 3, which means a third more in staff, administration, and maintenance costs. And we know that a disproportionate amount of special education costs, perhaps as much as 86%, are attributable to Whitman. Given all of that, I am hard-pressed to see how any objective person could reasonably believe that Hanson needs to pay more. Nevertheless, we will take a look at the data, and we will take a look at the law and the facts. And while some have tried to paint Hanson as a wealthier town that is taking advantage of Chapter 70 funding meant for Whitman, I take objection to that. Not all Chapter 70 funding is in fact attributable to Whitman. Here in Hanson, we also have folks living at or below the poverty level, as evidenced by the heavy use of the Hanson Food Pantry, which I help and I'm part of, and other similar giving organizations in the area. In addition, here in Hanson, we have a lot of multi-generational households, which statistically looks like a high per household income, unless you drill down to see that there are 4, 5, or 6 adults living in a house. So no, we are not a wealthy community. We are a community living within our means and with our financial house in order. I always find that people's true colors come out when they are faced with obstacles or difficult decisions. So it's disappointing to see that some in Whitman have resorted to threatening elected officials, hurling insults at Hanson, contorting the law, and misstating the facts just to get their way. It's concerning to see elected officials disregard our regional agreement, advice of counsel, and the law so that they can wiggle out of a financial obligation. It's disturbing that throughout this whole debacle, there has been little focus on the impact this debate will have on the district overall and on the divide it is creating between the two towns who should be united. I would like the board to take a vote tonight on whether we should participate in the Regional Agreement Renegotiation Committee and whether we should send a letter to the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee, putting them on notice that it is our council's opinion and their own council's opinion that they have no authority to assess the towns using any methodology other than the per-pupil methodology outlined in the 1992 Regional Agreement, which I might still remind everybody is still in effect. So that's all I've got to say. Okay. I would like to just kind of take a vote on that. Mary, I know I had asked you to draft a letter to Superintendent Simonek, and I don't know if you want to read it quickly to everybody.
Sure. In light of the recent discussions regarding the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District assessment calculation methodologies, the Hanson Board of Selectmen hereby requests the following information in order to determine Hanson's share of the cost of educating our students. Therefore, would you kindly provide the following: breakdown of all school building costs for each of the schools in the district, including utilities, insurance, and maintenance. Number of employees per school building to include, but not limited to, teachers, aides, office staff, food service, technology, maintenance, and any others who are paid through the school district. The salary and benefit costs for said employees at the respective schools. The number of students at each facility, including the number of special education students indicating which community they reside. Transportation costs, i.e. busing and crossing guards, indicating which community they serve. Please provide a detailed explanation of the savings from the closing of the McQuon School, indicating if and where the staff was relocated. The Hanson Board of Selectmen stands by the current alternative method of calculating the upcoming 2021 fiscal year budget. The board further believes that this information will provide better understanding of the cost per community. Thank you for your assistance in providing this valuable information.
And so I asked Mary to write that up in anticipation that you guys would agree. We need the facts. We just simply need to know revenue versus expense, and then we can take a look at it. My gut is, based on the things that I just told you guys, is telling me that it is not a case of Whitman subsidizing Hanson. In fact, I am fairly committed to, feel that it's going to actually show the reverse. We've got really dwindling numbers here, and we've only got the two schools, and even those two schools are not, full. They're not full. Anyway, we need the facts, and then once we're given the facts, we'll work with them and take a look. And everything's on the table. I really want to have an opportunity for us to engage. Well, obviously, you guys are an important part of this equation. The accountant, and really, citizens at large. We've already got several volunteers who have said that they'd be willing to be, to work with us through this exercise. I'm not going to get into saber rattling, and I don't want to insist that the school committee do anything other than follow the regional agreement, which is what we agreed to. And we're not welching on a bet. That's what the agreement is. The agreement is per pupil. That's where it's at until it's not. I'm hesitant. I don't know where you guys stand. I want to try to work on negotiating, but I think we're getting a really, really strong message that's hard to ignore from Whitman, both from the school committee members and from the Board of Selectmen. And I do want to mention that absent from that particular vote that the Board of Selectmen took the other night was Carl Kowalski. And I think it's important to mention that because I had a conversation with Mr. Kowalski several weeks ago in which we agreed that the path forward would probably be for us to lay all the numbers on the line and have a civil dialogue. Apparently, others did not get that memo. And Mr. Kowalski has had some surgery and he's out, so he wasn't part of that conversation. He wasn't part of that vote. So I don't know where you guys stand. You know, we could take it under advisement. You don't need to make a decision tonight. I would like to send the letter to Jeff. We need to collect the data.
Listen, I'll tell you where I stand. I'd like to make a motion to support that letter to the superintendent of schools.
Okay.
That's where I stand.
Any other thoughts on the letter? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Kenny moved?
Yep, I moved. Is there a second?
Okay, all in favor?
The only other thing is, should we put a deadline to get the information back so it's just not open-ended?
I would applaud your initiative
Just so it's
on
not,
that.
we're not
They've
forgotten.
had some, yes, but they've had some
Staffing
personnel,
changes.
thank you,
Okay.
staffing changes
Okay.
that might make it more difficult than it ordinarily would be.
I mean,
have every
60
reason
days,
to.
I mean, still
I
at the end
think,
of the-
you know,
yeah,
we'll.
what's reasonable?
Maybe we'll put a little tickler folder
Yeah,
and
something.
it just
That's-
say if we
Just
don't
follow
hear
up.
within
Yeah.
a month or so, we'll follow up and then we could get a little more,
Okay,
you
good.
know.
Thank you.
But I do want to try to be, you know, supportive of getting that information so that we can take a look at it holistically. Now, thoughts on, you know, Bob had asked, Mr. Hayes had asked for volunteers for this committee to look. I don't even know if the ball's still in play
We
on
never got a
that.
formal letter. I mean, if
Okay.
they wanted to put this committee together, I know they voted it, but we never got anything in writing saying this is what the true composition was going to be. I know they threw in the town administrators right at the end.
I'm struggling with, I'm struggling with a couple things with this committee. The size of it
The
is
size is-
extremely
yes.
unwieldy. My experience has been 24 people are never going to reach an agreement on anything. And so I struggle with that. I am struggling with whether we're really dealing with folks that are entering into this in good faith. Because we're getting very strong signals that would be, I think it would be foolish for us to act like everybody's going in good faith. That said, it doesn't mean that we can't still go in good faith just because the other guys aren't, and try to work on something. And I said this, and I said it at the school committee meeting, and I'm gonna keep saying it, we're talking about the schools. These two towns are together until we're not, in a region. And what I just don't hear anybody talking about that. It's like, us against them, and it's this craziness. And I get that there's a financial burden and a strain that, Whitman's trying to figure out, and that they've got their issues. I get that. But what I don't hear is let's work together, or let's, try to find a solution together, or, let's think about the kids. I'm not hearing any of that. I'm not hearing it from anybody. And that's concerning to me. And so I just wonder, if is it foolish for us to say that we'll, enter into good faith? But you make a good point. We haven't formally been asked yet.
Right.
So we could table the discussion until such time as we get a formal request.
agree.
Do you guys agree with that? Matt, could you have a thought there?
Yeah, well,
No, I
Mike,
just
Oh,
wanted to
sorry, Mike.
comment real quickly.
Yeah.
My understanding is that at that school committee meeting, it was that formation of the committee and invitations was subject to our town meeting, and if we were to rescind our vote, and then they would look to form that committee.
Oh, you may be right, Mike. You may be right about that, because
So that may be the explanation why we haven't gotten anything in
That's an
writing.
excellent point, and that may be why we haven't, because I think it is gonna be triggered off of the rescission.
Yes.
Which I'm hopeful will pass, but you just never know. It is town meeting.
and then I was going to say something, and Mike got one part of it. The other part is there are people in this room who had stood up and said to the Board of Selectmen in Whitman, I think, we should pump the brakes and we should all sit down and talk. I think there are good people out there who want to have that conversation. I think it would be hypocritical for us just to dismiss it and say we're not going to talk either when we're, citing that Whitman isn't. So I think having a conversation doesn't hurt, and I think
It doesn't commit us to anything.
right, exactly. And I think,
Except having a conversation.
right, and I think that's the direction that we should go as a board.
Okay, I like it. So I think what I'm hearing you guys say is, you're right, we'll wait till we get the official invite after the town meeting. Hopefully, we'll pass the rescission. neutralize us, then hopefully we'll get the invite and then we can take it under advisement. In the interim, I may just talk to Mr. Hayes and say, I was a bit stunned, but now that I've had a little time to think about it, 24 seems very unwieldy for any committee. And I get why. I think he was trying. I think he was trying. I know, but I think he was trying to be super inclusive, which is good. But in this case, maybe not so good because it's probably double the size of what it should be to be effective. But did somebody have their hand up, or am I hallucinating? Okay, wouldn't be the first time. Did anybody? What do you guys think? What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin. I would just say that when we can get that information to kind of look at where the data shows, let's just be cognizant of the time frame that we're working with in terms of if we get this, we're October 1st, 60 days out, you're December 1st, and generally the end of February, beginning of March, the school committee would be saying, here's our first draft of the budget. So we're working on a narrow time frame to begin with. And it's kind of, how do we move this along without getting full-scale fire drill budget cycle?
It's a nearly impossible timeline. I'm a glass half full gal. I really am. But it's a nearly impossible time. But that doesn't mean we can't try.
My concern is much like yours with it. 24-person committee. Getting anything done is going to be very difficult. When you add the level of rhetoric that's already been thrown around, in addition to the fact that we're already, we're going to start putting budget numbers together at the end of the year. Everyone stops for the holidays. I think we're up against the wall here to get it done quickly. I don't even. I think an open discussion is good until it's not good any longer, and we're going to have to find someone who's actually going to make the decision as far as what method are we going to go with, because we have to have a definitive answer. It's going to be an impossible swing going with $1 million swing in the butt, a potential $1 million swing in our budget going in. If we're past January, we still don't know what method we're using. I just think we have to. Maybe even 60 days is a long time frame to ask for information back. So maybe we just need to talk to Mr. Hayes and press the superintendent to get us that information as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think we need to be clear, right? Even though the 1992 regional agreement is still in place, and it's our council's position, and in fact their own council's position, that the school committee doesn't have the authority to assess in any way other than following that regional agreement. There are ways that Whitman can play this, which I think Fred and others had alluded to at the school committee meeting, which if we go through based on the per pupil methodology and it passes at Hanson but fails in Whitman, then it has to go back to the school committee. They then would say, okay, now we're using the statutory method. Then it will go back to another town meeting. Hanson would likely not pass it, Whitman would. Then you're at a super town meeting. And I don't know what that even looks like, and frankly, I'm really not looking forward to that, but if that's what it comes to, then that's what it comes to. My reason for getting into all of this is that if people are really, going to dig in, it could get to the point of what Superintendent Simonek described, which is it's a stalemate, and then DESE basically level funds them, and they are stuck with 1/12 budget, which is just going to be disgusting for everybody. And nobody,
for the kids.
For the kids. Nobody wins in that equation. I'm really hoping to prevail upon people's goodwill, sense of community, sense of how important education is, and spirit of cooperation, but I'm also not naive, so that's why we need the numbers, and we need to figure out our play. To your point, Kevin, if this fails, then what? And we're almost going to have to come up with a multi-tiered approach, because we're going to have to pivot every time, something happens or doesn't happen. So, and so that's pretty much it. Okay, any other thoughts on that? So you're gonna send the letter.
I will send the
We're
letter.
gonna wait for them to send us an official request for the 24-person committee. In their interim, if you guys are okay with that, I'll have a little discussion with Mr. Hayes and just say, can you guys maybe revisit the size of that committee, just for the sake of efficiency? All right, well, then that will end our school assessment discussion. And Mary, we will move on to the town administrator's report.
Okay, do you want to do the McQuon reuse, or do you want me to just do that as a quick update, our
Oh, you can
discussion?
just do a quick, yeah.
Okay, we had a discussion with Keller Williams, the company that's working on the McQuon reuse, and it was Laura and I and Deb Petty. So they're gonna put out a request for information, looking to just gather information on what people may actually do at the site prior to doing a request for proposals. And they've talked about a couple of things, in my opinion, I wasn't really comfortable with. A joint venture with a firm or a company. And so after discussions with them, we hung up, we thought maybe we need to reinstitute this committee and bring in some more people, which included the assessor, the town accountant, and get some financial information involved in here instead of just, they're looking to do housing behind the school. They want to, we want to keep the fields the best we can, and we're hoping that, maybe there is some reuse of the building itself, the front portion, and take down the rear portion. So there are a lot of components involved in this, but we want to get the best deal for the town and come up with, is this what we really want to have happen?
So we're revitalizing the committee.
Right.
Maybe we should rename it, just to give it better energy, because,
So,
yes.
I'm sorry, when you say reuse, are you talking about a potential buyer? Someone that's
So
bought the site?
that's what so initially, when that McQuon reuse committee was formed, it was like, hey, let's look at everything. But now it's been narrowed down.
Sure.
Now we're looking at, okay, can we get somebody to actually buy and reuse that building for senior housing? Some type of senior housing, like very modest, small number, like 130, no more than 130 units there. Can we get that? They believe that they can. And I get the sense, and Deb did too, that they might even have
somebody in line.
People lined up. As part of that, we had said, well, what's in it for the town? And originally we had talked about leasing, and in the last call, it suddenly took this wild left turn where they said, well, what about a joint venture? And we sort of got off the phone and said, why would a joint venture be good for the town? This seems like a lot of liability for us. Like, why would we even think about taking this on?
You said senior housing, not senior center?
With a senior center built by whoever's doing the senior housing.
And I'll just be the straight numbers guy that I'm here to be. Just a reminder, when we started this, the price was $750 to tear it down. The last estimate we got was 1.3.
Mm-hmm.
The estimate seems to continue to climb. And I'm all for business. I'm all for getting some sort of revenue out of it, but we also, I think everyone needs to just be cognizant that for some reason we got a bargain basement price the first time to tear it down. And
I get it, but what I can't do is I just can't pull the trigger on tearing it down until I know, in all good conscience, that we have thoroughly.
Sure, no, just from my standpoint, I'm just reminding people that the cost keeps climbing with tearing.
But the cost was for the whole building, though, and now
I think the cost climbed because perhaps the first estimate was not as
accurate.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
As it could
But
have.
some of the discussion's been, let's leave the main portion of the building, whereas originally it was just, we're gonna take the whole thing down. But there's potential in the front section of the building that we might be able to use for a senior center.
What we're hoping is that we're going to get somebody who's willing to say, okay, I know I'm getting a good deal, and I'm going to help the town out by revitalizing that front part, and you guys can use it for a senior center. That's what we're hoping. That's my dream scene. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what we're aiming for, with that back portion being some type of senior housing. If that does not work out, we're tearing it down. That's where we're at. So, that's kind of that's the place we're at now. But, so we've gone from this wide swath of, let's look at all options, selling it, reusing the whole thing, tearing it down. Now we've got this narrow focus, and so I think we need to get a group of people to look at that more narrow focus and participate in determining whether that's good for the town or not. So that.
And how long are we gonna wait?
Well, I think just probably a couple months.
Yeah, but they wanted to have a meeting like next week, and I said, I'm on vacation. So, we'll try to get these other people involved in it. So I said, I'll be back on the 14th. So they want a meeting on the 15th. I'm like, well, may not happen on the 15th.
One way or the other, we're gonna have something on the town
There's another,
warrant. It's gonna be on the town warrant for me.
Yeah.
One way or the
Okay,
other.
but we go
Yeah.
through another 2 months of this, we're talking December.
Mhm.
So we're going through another winter of heating and everything else, which is gonna be another
Well,
27,000.
no, everything's off.
It's all shut down.
It's all shut down. It's winterized and everything, so we had,
But it wasn't $27,000 last year?
that's for the insurance, to have it insured.
That's the
A
insurance
vacant,
cost per year.
vacant building insurance.
Vacant building insurance
Mm.
cost is $27,000.
Okay, thank you for that.
So speaking of the seniors, there will be we put aside some money to do an assessment for the seniors, the needs of the seniors. And so in this week's mailboxes should be postcards from the company who's been doing this, from the UMass. And they are looking for input from the residents. And so it's everybody over 50, so not everyone's gonna get one. Just putting you on notice that a questionnaire will be coming out, and the questionnaire will be out next week. If you could answer the questionnaires, they provide a self-addressed stamped envelope to return it, so they can get a better idea of what the residents feel they need for the town. So they hope to have their all the analysis done and returned by October 31st. So if you're old enough and you get a special postcard in the mail, keep an eye out for the questionnaire and please complete it and return it. That would be great, most helpful. The cell tower, that has been continued to November 12th. I had received a call from Verizon. Sean Mahoney is a gentleman that we've been dealing with. After their last hearing at the ZBA, several abutters were concerned that the tower was right on the property line and there are setback requirements and things like that. So he came in and pulled out the plan and said they are going to suggest to the ZBA and wanted our approval first to see if they can move the cell tower location 100 feet south, which would be more towards the back of the school. It's not moving closer, it's just in the straight line back. And right now, it's right at the end of we have a separate access road off of East Washington Street. And it just sat right at that corner, and they're gonna move it south, which actually opens up the access road a little bit better, so you can actually get behind the middle school. It seems like a really good option. And we've sent it off to the ZBA. They seem to be very receptive. It should quiet the abutters who are concerned. There are no houses immediately near the tower, but it is, next to a lot line, and people were concerned. So they will be having that hearing on November 12th.
If they do that, will that meet the setback requirements?
I don't think it'll make, I think the setback requirement is like 300 feet, and it's not gonna do that, but it's gonna,
It addresses
alleviate,
some of the
addresses some of the abutters'
Okay.
concerns. So, and they can't go too far back, because then you get into some wetlands issues, and close to, some septic issues, so it's a pretty good compromise.
Good.
I posted the highway director's position. The applications on that are due on Friday, October 18th. Vaping, I'm sure you heard everything you possibly want to hear about vaping and the vaping ban. Well, the Board of Health sent out notices to all the tobacco establishments, and they are all in compliance. The police department went out on Friday to confirm that everybody is respecting the ban.
Mary, maybe perhaps you were gonna get to this town administrator, the posting?
That we heard from MRI, Municipal Resources, Inc., the applications closed yesterday. They didn't give us a specific number, but as of the end of last week, it was 30, and they expected to get a few more over the weekend. So I think they were going to have a pretty good pool. They have put together essay questions to send. They're gonna vet through the 30 or 35 applicants and pick out the people they think would be their best fit for Hanson, and send out essay questions and see how people respond, and then go from there. So they're moving along. They seem pretty positive about the process.
Very responsive.
Yes,
very
they're right
engaged.
on top of
Yep.
it. And so the essay questions they sent, and a few other little side questions, Laura and I got to look at, and we made comments on some of the changes to the questions. So they said those are fine, and they will send those out and keep us posted on their progress. So
One of the things Mary had really emphasized was that experience with municipal finance was extremely important, particularly given what we just discussed tonight. So that was just a minor little tweak that they made, but they've been great, and
They have been.
Yeah, really, really responsive. I feel very positive about the candidates we're going to end up getting.
Mm-hmm. And I will be out of the office next week. Everybody will be fine at town meeting, I promise. Everybody will be well prepared. And Gray will be here holding down the fort while I'm out. So if you have any questions or need anything, let me know before the end of the day on Friday. I'll see if we can button everything up for you. And I think that is all I have.
Can I have one, Kenny?
You can.
Becky Neely is retiring.
Oh, yes, we had a nice little luncheon today for Becky Neely from Conservation Planning. It was very nice. Becky has been here for 24 years, and so she's worked for the town. She worked for the Housing Authority as well. So she had 24 years of service in the community, and it'll be sad to see her go. She is just a light. She's always smiling and always happy, and we will miss her. So we will be posting that position. I'm still waiting for reviewing the job descriptions, since we've split the job descriptions up, and going to check them with the union rep and get those posted. So that will be an in-house posting for 2 weeks once I get those up. And then if nobody applies, we'll open it up to the general public. So we've got a lot of postings out there, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yep, things are chugging along. Okay, moving along, and we are on to approving the minutes, and I assume we're not releasing the executive sessions.
Correct.
Just approving. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, fabulous. We've got a one-day liquor license for Camp Quaney for, I'm not gonna mention it because it could be a surprise. We've run into that before. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, clipping along. We are on committee reports. 200th Anniversary Committee. What can I say? Audrey is keeping us on task. We are getting all kinds of fabulous things done, and more on that at a future meeting. Final Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee.
We met last week or the week before, and we finally got the plans from land planning, and now we're able to start making the next draft of the layout, proposed park, and other usages up at the park.
That's exciting.
Or up at Plymouth County.
So Maytown meeting?
Possibly at Maytown
Alright.
meeting we'll have something.
All right, Matt, make it happen. I think we already went over the McQuon School Reuse Committee. Kenny, what say you?
So we finally met, which was very
fabulous.
exciting,
Yes.
considering we haven't met in a while. So we had a very good meeting. We met yesterday. So what we did yesterday is we come up with realistic dates and set tentative dates so we can start from now until Maytown meeting, as far as the bid
Yeah.
and stuff. So we'll be meeting again on October 16th. That'll be a review and confirmation of the actual design. So they'll bring in the design, and we'll make sure, we have enough offices, garage doors, enough for the equipment and stuff. Then around November 22nd, they'll do a schematic design. Schematic design is they'll take all the pieces that are going to go in the building and make sure and come and confirm with the committee that those are all the pieces. The pieces don't have to be in the exact spots, but at that point, they'll make sure we have enough lifts and, you know, the stuff that store the oil and everything that goes on in there. And then after that, they'll have a design development. Now that's when we have to figure out exactly where everything will go. That'll be like around the end of December, and they'll come to us in the beginning of January for, you know, an approval of the final where everything is going to go again. And then they'll start construction documents, which will include 90% of what the cost will be of the building. All right. Once they get the design, once they get the construction documents, they'll then be able to put it out to bid. Should be probably around the first week of March. They'll put it out. They'll put out a construction bid, and then they'll also file 2 weeks after a sub bid. A sub bid is for subcontractors, for electrical contractors, plumbers, and that has to be done separately along with the general contracting bid. And then they'll file the bid itself for the whole project probably around March. I'm hoping March 11th is the date we have, and we're hoping to have a closing bid of April 8th, which is a month before town meeting, with the actual.
That is ambitious.
Yeah, with the actual cost of the building, and then Weston and Sampson will, because they go through this whole process with us. That's why I'm hoping to have a town administrator in place, because I'm gonna need a town administrator somewhere in January to do some of this stuff.
Me too.
But they'll go through and, you know, work with the contractors, and, you know, they'll go through and wean out, you know, the good ones, the bad ones, and they do really a lot of work. But the goal is to have a number at Maytown meeting to do a debt exclusion on the new highway department, you know.
Well,
So I'll
that's
make sure I'll get you guys in this list here, you know, in the end of the winter to come and see you. Also, we'll have a date on October 16th. We're gonna meet during the day. We're gonna get some input from the highway guys. I'm gonna invite Ryan, IT, to see what he thinks what the building's gonna need. Also, Mr. Armstrong for the green stuff, Matt.
Great, I
So
have
we
it
can
right there.
make sure that, you know, so we're gonna do that on the 16th, and just get some input, and hopefully we can come up with a reasonable number that the people will agree with, so we can do a debt exclusion and see if we can get these guys out of this place and into the new place.
That's a
And
good
that's all I
update.
have.
All right, awesome, thank you. So with that, we will move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Further conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, to wit, interim highway surveyor, easy for me to say. I will entertain a motion, and it's gotta be a roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
No.
Aye.
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 Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Okay.